we have the first candidate, a company called Flutura. So the Flutura Decision Sciences Company is a decision services sciences company that focuses on machine-to-machine and big data analytics. So Flutura.
Good afternoon, everybody. Human beings perceive the world around them using the 5 senses, eyes, ears, and there is certain experience of the world through the senses, various senses. But if you want to have a truly transformative experience, they say you have to unlock the third eye. So what Flutura does is we are changing the way we impact energy outcomes by looking at sensor data in a completely different manner. So I'll talk to you in detail about what we do. What are some of the real-world use cases we are solving? So we focus exclusively on the energy sector, oil and gas, as well as utilities, specifically on the last mile. One of the problems we're solving for a customer in Japan is that they're trying to reduce their dependency on nuclear power because of the disaster. So every household, they're putting the solar panels, and there's a smart meter which records bidirectional flow of power. And we are trying to see, so a consumer of energy can also be a producer of energy and contribute back to the grid. So we are trying to promote prosumers in that thing so that the stress on the nuclear grid comes down. The second use case we're trying to solve is in the energy sector between typically around 10:30 to 3 o'clock is when the peak stress happens on the grid. And in almost all countries in the world, you have what is called as peaking power plants. These are power plants bought up only at peak time to service the spike in demand. And these peaking power plants are extremely expensive, and you can reduce the need for peaking power plants by altering small habits of a consumer. Say, for example, if he powers up his washing machine during that time, and if you can reduce that behavior, you can reduce the number of peaking plants. Or if you change him to a different type of, to incandescent lamps, you can reduce the stress on the grid. That's one of the use cases we're working upon. And if you look at the energy grid itself, assets have not been changed for a long time. And trying to understand asset intelligence and changing behavior at the last mile is something which we're working on. Now, how do we do it? We have something called Cerebra, NAMO. It is nano apps with massive outcomes. So we try to unbundle the enterprise software and make it narrow and deep. 3 things we do differently. First thing is we are able to instantiate an app in the energy world within 30 days. And that's something which they're not used to. They take typically months and years to do something. Sorry. We have a predefined vectors, as we'd call it, which has the potential to become signal. These are very specific to the utility and oil and gas industry. And last but not the least, energy sector, they are the laggards in technology adoption in the sense that change management is a huge aspect. So if you put a new box in, say, I got this beautiful big data product, the chances of it being adopted are fairly less because you're trying to impact the last mile, the operator, and the command center folks. So what we do is we try to give them a gamified experience so that their engagement with the products dramatically increases. These are 3 things we're doing differently. We've been featured by GigaOM, funded by the Hive. So what do we guarantee to the customer? So what our guarantee to the energy and oil and gas sector is that within 30 days, we'll find out a pattern which has a massive impact on your energy outcomes. It could be a reduced dependence on the peak power, reduce the technology losses. What are the energy manifestation of the energy outcomes? We'll guarantee that within 30 days, you'll be able to see a pattern. And in a way, we'll be able to unlock the third eye of the organization so that they experience the sensor data in a very transformative manner. Thanks for your patience.
All right, our second company in this lightning round, number 2. Infinote was purpose-built to access, act on, and audit documents and contracts that must remain compliant to regulatory authorities or must be optimized for best performance. So welcome to Infinote.
Well, thank you for the introduction, and it's nice to have a full house, practically a full house here. I'm Yogan Kapadia, CEO and founder of Infinote. I know we've had lunch just a few minutes ago, so take a second to stretch and think about the next question that I'm going to ask you. Would you drive a car with a windshield of the size of an iPhone? Well, it's a rhetorical question. The answer is obviously no. But that is exactly what we are doing in the enterprise world all the time. Enterprises take decisions based on a very tiny fraction of the data available to them, that which is stored in your structured databases. Over 85% of the data is never analyzed. And this is the data that is in unstructured text format, sitting in documents across various repositories like SharePoint, Documentum, FileNet, Google Drive, name it. Infinote addresses this 85% of the data. It brings structure to the world of unstructured documents so that it's easy to and it's available for analysis. Let's take the example of a large corporation that issues credit cards. Now, due to a regulatory change imposed by the federal government around the billing fee structure, up to 7 million contracts had to be changed. You could not charge late fees anymore, and this simple regulatory change impacted 7 million contracts. And with Infinote, you can analyze the impact of this change in a click, update, and not just analyze the impact of this change in a click. We do it with 100% accuracy. 99.9% is not good enough. Then, in another click, we can go ahead and update all the impacted documents and automatically generate an audit trail so that you're compliant with your regulatory requirements at all times. Now, that is the power of Infinote. Now, prior to founding Infinote, I was leading regulatory quality and compliance at Genentech. And life sciences, like other regulated industries, also have a similar problem. Small content and regulatory changes cause an impact to a large number of documents costing millions of dollars. And until now, there has been no easy way to address this massive challenge. Infinote is the world's first and only solution that gives you the power of big data text analytics in just a click right within Microsoft Word. You don't have to learn any new tools. There is a lot of complex technology at the back end, but as an end user, all what you need to know is how to use Word. We are making large inroads in bringing structure to the world of unstructured contracts and documents in the life sciences space. That in itself is a $3.6 billion market. And eventually, we plan to expand to other verticals, which are larger markets like finance and insurance. I'm Yogan Kapadia, CEO and founder of Infinote, and I'm here to bring visibility into that 85% of the data that was impossible to analyze until now. Thank you.
Our third and final lightning round presenter this afternoon is DataTorrent. Being from the Hadoop related world, DataTorrent I know pretty well. When we used to think about Hadoop as only being a batch system, these guys are doing something really disruptive to change that perception. So DataTorrent.
Thanks, Milind. So we're going to talk to you a little bit about, I think a lot of the people who have spoken today, they've talked about speeding up analytics for big data, right? So we all know that when it comes to big data, there's just so much of it that to actually analyze it, extract information out of it, it takes time to do that. So at DataTorrent, what we do is we are focused on, we've built a platform that is essentially enables you to do real-time big data analytics and action for the enterprise. If you can skip to the next slide. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Hadoop, actually, because one of the most interesting innovations that have come out of Hadoop over the past couple of years has been Hadoop 2.0. So most people, of course, Hadoop and MapReduce are synonymous. They're the same thing. At least with Hadoop 1.0, that was true. But the really interesting thing they did with Hadoop 2.0 was that they essentially extracted out the MapReduce function from the resource management layer of Hadoop. And it now kind of sits as a library on top of a new thing called Yarn. And Yarn is what actually manages all the CPUs and memory and hard disk that you have in your Hadoop cluster. And really what that's done is it's really kind of positioned Hadoop to become the de facto standard in distributed computing. With over 2 million public nodes in production today worldwide, it really sort of has become the Linux of mass distributed computing. So if you've got big data jobs, you're really going to do it on Hadoop, right? It is sort of the standard now. So what we've done is we've actually built a platform. We were probably the first, if not one of the first, if not the first, Yarn native application that was built on top of Hadoop. And we sit there, and we're kind of a generalized platform. So we actually have nothing to do with MapReduce. You can do any sort of processing, any sort of algorithmic calculation you need on our platform through the use of what we call operators and applications. If you can skip to the next slide. So if you think about Hadoop, and it just go through the rest of that, that's fine. If you think about Hadoop, it's traditionally a batch job, right? You run a batch Hadoop job, it runs for 8 hours, you come back 8 hours later, and you have your results. And then you can do something with those results. And there are a lot of tools that have come out that help you analyze those results in a much more real-time fashion. You can load it up into memory and query the database in memory and so forth. But really, the source of that data is still 8 hours old. So it's not something that's very, very actionable, really. So what we've done is we built a platform that essentially sits on your Hadoop cluster. It's connected directly to all the data buses that you may have coming into that cluster in real time, and ingesting all that data in memory, and then processing all that data in memory in real time at extreme scale. So we have a 35-node cluster of our own that we work with for demos and for development, and we decided what could be the maximum throughput of that 35-node cluster, which is like 4 years old, so it's not new hardware. And so we ran one of our demos, and we kind of maxed it out at about 1.6 billion events per second. So highly scalable, very performant, easily orders of magnitude more than what else you might find in the marketplace. And really, the other component to this, too, is that we do this in a completely fault-tolerant way with full HA. And that's important because when you're doing processing of data in real time, if you lose data because a node goes out, then all the calculations you have, if you're running a 5-minute dashboard of a rolling 5-minute window updating every second, that data will be wrong if you lose data. So we make sure that there's no data loss and it recovers within seconds with no human intervention. So we really have a fully HA capable platform. And even with that HA built into it, we still are extremely highly performant. So something very unique. Go to that last slide for me. Thanks. So really then what we do is we sort of take care of all the plumbing, right? All the scale issues, all the HA, all the connectivity. We have what we call operators that are simple Java code. You put those operators together into a DAG, which you see in the upper left-hand corner there, and that essentially is your app that's running 24/7 on your cluster on top of DataTorrent. And so really, you focus on the business logic, and we take care of all the rest. All the plumbing underneath, the scaling, the distribution of those tasks across all the different nodes and containers within your cluster, we handle all that for you automatically so that really you can focus on the business logic, the thing you care about most, and we handle the rest. So a truly flexible platform. We have a number of input connectors that connect to various different data buses and output connectors as well. So it's pretty unique and Marvel. So thank you for your time.